So, it's been like 8 months since I posted a video. Let's talk about it.
Oh my god, dude, I did not let up.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's been a minute. I know I've done this twice now. I've taken long breaks and haven't posted anything. You know, life just kind of gets away from me. The main reasons, I guess, for that would be I kind of told myself I didn't want to do garage videos anymore. I just wanted to film like wheeling content and then like walkarounds and stuff. For a handful of different reasons. The garage videos for the most part don't do as well as far as views go. I mean, my beadlock video did really good, but that's kind of the only one. Everything else, and they take a lot of work. They're a lot more work than the other videos. And they kind of ruin, I don't know, they make working on the Jeep not as fun. It makes it feel more like work when I have to remember to pick up the camera, film every single thing that I'm doing. If I skip something and forget to film it, and then, you know, hours later when I'm editing a video and the whole project's done and I'm like, oh, I didn't show me making that tab or something. It's kind of hard to like fill those gaps. Whereas when I'm wheeling, you know, if I miss a trail, it's not the end of the world. So I had kind of internally told myself that I wasn't going to make garage videos anymore. What I didn't anticipate was that I'm a little addicted to cutting this stupid thing apart, which means that I go long stints of no wheeling. You know, I have friends who are wheeling, and I suppose I could ride passenger with them and film that, which I've tried to do. But, you know, I did the back half on this thing if you follow me on Instagram. If not, we'll go over that here in a minute. And that took like 6 or 7 months of me no wheeling. And then I wheeled it 3 or 4 times. And then I decided to do an LS swap. And then while I was doing that, I decided to cut the front end off and tube it all out and then redo the internal cage. Just a big whole thing. And, you know, now it's been 8 months since I posted a video. Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna go back to posting garage videos just for the sake of content, and to try and keep the channel growing, because it was growing at a pretty good pace there for a while, and it's definitely died as far as the growth goes because I just haven't been posting. So with that being said, I'm going to go back to filming garage videos of me working on this LS swap, and we're going to go over all the different changes here in the Jeep. I'm also, I think, going to go over and start filming all of my buddies who work on this stuff, because, you know, we all do work parties and stuff where we stay up late and work on each other's rigs, you know, not just in my garage, but, you know, I'll go over to Ethan's garage or my buddy Josh or someone, you know, and those are fun too. So I feel like you guys could learn stuff from that, and if not, just follow along with the banter and, you know, follow along on those builds too, not just be following me in my garage. So yeah, hopefully there's more content to come soon. Hopefully this thing's done and back on the trail really soon. I'm hoping to be done and back out there before the snow is gone. So I got, you know, a few months to really buckle down and get things done. It doesn't look very close to done, but promise me when I say it actually is pretty close. There's not a whole lot of labor left. It's just some money I got to come up with. So we're working on it and we're getting close. So as for the Jeep, let me give you a quick little update of what it looks like in its current state. It's a little bit of a mess around here because I'm in the middle of so much stuff, but I realized that the back half never really got a proper introduction to the YouTube channel. It got a whole lot of love on the Instagram, and I think my last snow video, yeah, it was back half for that, but I didn't talk about it at all. I just kind of like, here it is, and it was there. But yeah, so last summer, I cut this thing in half and tubed it out, so it's just a buggy from the back seats back, all tube chassis. There's no frame rails left. And then it does go through the back of the cab and connect to the internal cage. So it's all nice and strong, you know, it's not gonna rip off. This is actually the back hatch that I then welded to the cab. Bondoed as best I could. I'm not a bodyman, so that doesn't look fantastic, but it's definitely good enough for a wheeler. It kind of matches the rest of the messed up body panels. And yeah, I mean, I can fold this down here. So you can see there's the back hatch. I gutted it. I made a bolt-on removable window out of plexiglass, and this is all just sheet metaled in as best I could. Sealed up. It doesn't leak or nothing. So yeah, it's super great. I've got like actual storage back here. This is where my air compressor is, and I do have a set of harnesses that go to the harness bar back here for the seat belts. And so yeah, that's been awesome. We got door bars now back here. It's, you know, they are nice and tight. You can see I actually had to cut into the door panel to make them fit. The cage is a lot tighter. I did some bends up here to give you more headroom. So yeah, all around so much better. The main reason for the back half, which I kind of hinted at in my last walk around video of this thing like a year ago, was just weight savings. Like, it was just really, really, really heavy before. And so I wanted a way to keep the cab, you know, I don't want a buggy. I want it to still look like a wheeler, like a Jeep. But I wanted to keep the cab, but lose as much weight as possible. And if at all possible, gain up travel. So I did that with the back half. I mean, I lost about 400 pounds or so, according to my math on my spring rates, which is huge. We also went from 5.5 inches of rear up travel to about 9, which is crazy. We also went from 12-inch coilovers to 16s with the DSC adjustable reservoirs. So that's cool. We got air bumps back here now. We've got a TK1 Racing sway bar, which is incredible. I should have done that years ago. And then, yeah, just all tubes. And we have a spare tire carrier, which is kind of hard to see, but you can see it like that. There's videos of that or pictures of that on my Instagram. Maybe I'll throw one up. Looks super rad. So you can carry a full-size spare, which helps with a lot of things. Obviously nice to have a spare, but you can get some weight back over the axle, which kind of sounds counterintuitive because the whole point was to lose weight. But now I can choose to have weight back there or not, depending on what I'm doing, right? If I want to go to the dunes, I want to have weight back there. If I'm going buggy rock crawling, I want to be really light. So now I can, you know, pick and choose rather than just living with the cab. Another big update is the LS swap is coming along nicely. It's looking beautiful. Let me get a flashlight so you can see this actually. Yeah, so it's looking beautiful. The block is all painted and refreshed. I've basically replaced every single gasket on this thing. It's got, let's see, new head gaskets, front and rear mains, covers, timing chain, oil pump, water pump. I did BTR lifters, or BTR LS7 lifters. It's got headers. I did the aluminum barbell oil mod, and then it's gonna get a fancy intake and a baffled oil pan. I don't have either of those yet. I just have the stock oil pan on there right now, and I'm still waiting on the nice intake, but I won't drive it without either of those. I don't know if you know, but LSs are pretty notorious for oil starvation, and I'm not trying to do that. Yeah, so I'm super excited about this. Having one of these motors has kind of been a dream for a long time, as it is with a lot of people. And I realize this isn't, you know, the nicest LS in the world. And, you know, there's a good chance that it's going to blow up as soon as I get going, because it is technically on the inside still a junkyard LS. But even if it does, that doesn't matter to me, because I can always just take all of my pretty parts that I have on this and my, you know, my nice new parts and put them on a different LS when this one blows up. So once the swap is done, the swap's done, you know, and yeah. All right, so let's talk about the changes to the front and the engine cage and all that. So this looks way different. It's also super nose low right now, so forgive me for that. I could jack it up. So as you can see, there is no more frame rail. I basically cut the frame rails off right here at this blue tape, and then it's all tube chassis from there forward, which is super cool. that's something I've wanted to do for a long time as well. Kind of along the same lines of, I was just trying to shave as much weight as possible in this thing. It was a tank, and I'm trying to make it be strong like one, but be lighter. I think a lot of people underestimate how much weight plays a role in how a vehicle performs. And you know, these are just easy wins. It's something that I wanted to do anyways. It makes the LS swap way easier because I could just run tubes for my motor mounts, and it looks clean. I'm gonna be able to see a whole bunch of the motor, which is gonna look awesome. I was able to 4-link the front, which we'll go over here in a minute, gain some up travel, lose a bunch of weight, gain strength. It's all tied in through the firewall to the roll cage, so it's plenty strong. And yeah, man, it just looks awesome. It's so cool to see it like a tube chassis, front and rear, you know, and you can kind of see how that frame rail goes up and over. It just looks amazing. I'm super stoked about it. So like I was saying, it is no longer 3-linked up front. So I used to have a track bar. You can kind of see my old mount down there. It was behind the axle track bar, which was super cool. It was kind of stealthy. But if you don't know, track bars are kind of terrible. They're really limiting and binding. They make the axle do weird stuff with lots of travel. You know, if you're only running, you know, a little bit of travel, you can make them work. But once you go to long travel stuff, they're definitely not as good as a 4-link. So a true 4-link was the goal. Now 4-links up front are tricky because you have your motor right there, and you got to worry about the oil pan and you know, the harmonic balancer and all the pulleys and stuff, as well as the frame rails. So there was lots of question marks there, which was a big reason why I went with the tube frame, because that allowed me to go up and over basically where the links go. So we're not sitting at full bump right now, but you can see as it would go down, the frame goes up and over the upper links. And then I wanted to run the links on the outside of the frame rail. And the reason for that is because it helps clear everything on the engine side. It gives you a ton of room, but it also makes the tunnel wide open for big drive lines and big exhaust. It makes all of that a lot easier. But with it being a unibody, I was pretty nervous to just run link mounts to the frame rail like that. Even though this is all, you know, everything that's left of the unibody is plated and cleaned up, you know, top, bottom, inside out, it's all super gusseted and plated. But just sticking a tube on here and a link mount, I didn't trust that. So what I did instead was I just ran the internal roll cage down, and it basically lands on that tube. So this is the tube on the frame with the upper link mount. You can see the Heim right there. And the roll cage goes through the dash and lands straight on it. So now that upper link mount is tied in to the tube chassis basically, because the rest of it is all tied into that, you know. Our engine cage tube comes through the firewall and hits this tube. And then this is all tied into the back, obviously. And I do plan to add a gusset from here to here, another tube gusset to kind of triangulate that. So it's going to be a super strong like node by the end of it all. I'd also really like to get some door bars from the B pillar of the cage. Basically this tube, like right in here. If I could get one through there, down through here, or just along the floorboard, that'd be a big win as well. But yeah, so that's the 4-link. I'm really excited to drive it with that. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about the roll cage. So basically the cage was cut out from the B pillar forward. All of this is new. Anything B pillar forward is new. That's why there's still a big hole in the roof. And a lot of these are unpainted still. I haven't painted everything yet. But yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was all a DNC Extreme kit cage before. It was 1.5-inch tube. It was DOM, but it was... All right, so when I was sitting inside before, you know, I always hit my head on the cage here. I also had a tube running like diagonally, that's the word. I had a tube running diagonally across, and I hit my head on that because it just wasn't very tight fitting. I built that cage without a tube bender. That's why I bought the kit cage. You know, it made more sense to me I basically had like $1,000, and I was like, I can buy a welder or I can buy a tube bender, but then I need a welder. And so I bought a welder and bought a kit cage, and then I built everything else with straight tubes. So all of, you know, these diagonal tubes that the kit didn't come with were straight. So they didn't bend up to the roof, they just went straight out. So I mean, there was a good 4 fingers to the roof line, which, you know, that does a couple of things. That would mean that if I rolled, the roof would have caved in a whole bunch, and it would have like still looked totaled. Probably would have saved my life still, but 2, I also like hit my head on it all the time. So, you know, when we were out the dunes or something, everyone had to wear helmets all the time, which is still going to be the rule, but that was mainly because you just hit your head on the cage the whole time. So I really wanted to redo it and run 1 3/4 tube, all DOM. I wanted to bend it myself so I could have the pride in knowing that I have built all of the tube work on this thing. And I wanted it as tight as humanly possible. So I feel like I have accomplished that. I mean, I can't even get my finger anywhere in this thing. It is so tight, so tight. There's bends everywhere that there needs to be to follow the chassis line. I also went through the dash this time rather than around it. It used to come around. And I put it as far over as I can because I'm a manual now. So I wanted to make sure that I had room for my foot. I'm surprised how much of a difference that tube being over and in made for comfort. Wasn't, you know, I was so concerned about my headroom before that I never really noticed how little leg room I had. So now everything's just so much better. I also added an intrusion bar. I didn't have one of those before. The dash bar is lower. It's kind of hard to see because there's no hood, but before I could see a little bit of daylight underneath this tube and the hood, and now I can see the hood above this tube, so it's just way lower than it used to be. Everything's 360 welded. I dropped the cage down, 360 welded everything and pushed it back up, and then I reopened the hole in my roof. I did this when I did the back half, and then I'll just close that back up and re-weld it and seam seal it, and it didn't leak before. I don't expect it to leak this time. Yeah, that's the internal cage. Huge changes as far as comfort in here. It feels like a totally different rig. It's crazy. Let's talk about this massive hole. There's actually a whole bunch of holes. If I get my flashlight, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one down by the gas pedal. There's holes galore. This one being the big one. I mean, it's completely under my seat, a big hole here. And that's all just for the LS swap and my new transfer case. So I ended up selling my 2-speed Atlas that I had, and I got a 4-speed Atlas finally. So that's a big upgrade if you don't know. That basically allows me to have so many more gear options. It's not even in the same ballpark. So I'll have 1:1 gear ratio. I'll have 2:0 gear ratio. I'll have 272 as an option, and then I'll have like 472 or so, which with the changes in the transmission gear ratio compared to my old one, is just slightly lower than my old low was. So the rock crawling gear of like super low will pretty much be the same if my math all lines up, which will be great because I loved it in the rocks. It was perfect for that. But I'll have 2:0 for the sand. I'll have 1:1 for the street if I want to drive it around, which I shouldn't be. And then I'll have 272 for the snow. And you know, I have the 5-speed, so I can play around with all those. So I should never, ever feel like I can't find the right gear now, especially with all the extra horsepower. Should be great. Speaking of that pretty thing, you can see it down there. There's the old 4-speed. Yeah. So as far as getting it done and back on the trail, what's needed? The LS is done internally. It's all sorted and ready to go. It just needs the intake and oil pan, which are bolt-on. I just painted that front tube work last night, so that's all done and dry, and I need to basically get a clutch and a flywheel put it on the motor, bolt the trans back up, and get the motor and trans back in here. I have already had the motor and trans mocked up in here. Maybe I'll throw up some pictures of that because it looks sick. But get them back in here, and then I can build my cross member and a transfer case mount. I've got bushings for that. I need a fancy radiator. I do still have my stock radiator, which could get me by for testing purposes, but I want to get a nice, you know, dual row, triple row aluminum like race radiator for it. I still need to build a winch mount, so there's no winch spot up front right now. I still have my old winch and everything, but there's nowhere to put it. So I need to come up with something with that. I obviously need to patch all these holes in the wall or in the floor and on the firewall. There's a bunch of them. So there's going to be a decent amount of labor involved there. Shorten the drive lines. I need to get bump stops on the front. I have bump stops, my old ones, my locked ones, but I haven't mounted the cans or anything yet. So there's probably a day or so of work there to be done. And then I think pretty much the rest is just in wiring of the LS. So I'm poor, so I'm not going to be running like a Holley or anything at this point. I'm going to be running the stock computer and just like 3-wiring it, you know, for now. I didn't change the cam or anything in the LS, so there's no reason that I need to have it tuned. So I'm just going to be running the stock computer and the stock harness for now. And and an exhaust. I have all the tubing for that already, so I just need to whip one out. The trans tunnel's wide open, as you saw, so that should be pretty straightforward and easy. Shouldn't take very long. We're pretty much ready to go. It like I said, it doesn't look very close because there's gaping holes and no carpet and no engine or hood or fenders, you know. But it is. I've had all of this stuff in and out a bunch of times. The mounts are like there, you know. I have a lot of the stuff. It's closer than it looks, and I'm really hoping to have it done here soon so we can get back out and go play again. All right, guys, so that's pretty much my update. I'll try to keep pumping the videos out and keep working on this thing. I'm pretty motivated right now, so I'm hoping that I'll have it done soon, and this thing won't be on the engine stand much longer, and you'll see this thing back out, ripping it up, crushing some trails, and just looking freaking awesome. Super, super excited. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.